All right, it's March 30th and a cold but now very warm spike in the weekly temperatures and constantly wet. It's been raining almost since Friday and is moving into a lot of rain over the week. And where we are in the season is hopefully everyone's managed to get in and do their sweeping and urea and have put on one of the coppers for silver tip. Because with all this rain, we may need to creep in and apply a second copper when the plants begin to hit green tip. If you're in one of the regions that's under a heavy infection period and green tip is already reported, it may be time, if we get a break in the rain, to not go copper again, but to use one of the anilino-pyrimidine fungicides, Scalar or Vanguard. If you use one of those two, they will have only a group 9 in them, and you won't use up one of your other allotted numbers, the group 7s, 11s, 3s, or 52s. And with all the rain, these are great on cold. They're great in cold weather, good on scab, not that valuable on other materials. So good ones to use. Now, if you're running an alternative program and you're just throwing out multi-site fungicides, but you're still allowing yourself some single sites, same things are going to happen. If it's washed off all the copper, if you've gotten a lot of that rain over an inch, it might be time to re-put the copper on. But if you're in an area that's already at green tip and you've been experiencing these 5 days of rain, this could be one of these fringe situations that Dr. Wallace and I talked about at the winter fruit schools. In that case, you'll want to go with one of the anilino-pyrimidines, just like with the regular folks, and come in and put that on in that gap and protect against the next couple of days of rain that we're going to have. And with that, this is where we are right now. Hopefully everyone has got their urea application, 40 pounds per 100. If you haven't yet, you can still do it as long as you can drive in the orchard. It will still do you good. We'll talk about in a little bit what these types of things are doing for apple scab, or you can go dolomitic lime, 2.5 tons to the acre. Make sure that you rinse your spray pumps out very well because urea is very corrosive and sort of will tear things up and corrode metal pretty quickly. At that point, this is what I'm talking about. Any delayed dormant application of copper, just right off that sort of silver tip moving into green tip type period, and use a 15% metallic copper equivalent. That's what the MCE stands for. And these the heavier products, the badges, the co-sides, and some of the other coppers that are I guess WPs or WDGs or any of the powders are fine. If you have a liquid one that's a fairly thick one like Badge C, that's a nice one, and also will stay on the trees a little bit longer. And as we're moving in, I mentioned before, it's probably safe to do another one of these of the sort of heavier coppers. But if you are going to get a big ascospore ejection or about 4 or 5 days of rain, and your area has actually triggered an infection period due to the combination of this 60-degree weather and 50-degree weather and a lot of weather, it might be time to go for the APs, the Scalar, or the Vanguard. I'd still save the Dodine for a little bit later in the season, just in case we have one where there's going to be more ascospore ejection. We'll take a look at this in a minute once we get to the forecast, but for the most part, all of these work really well on apple scab, but not so well on the other diseases. So moving away from the management aspect and getting into the forecast, let's take a look at what we've got at the moment. We're in Appleton. It still says they're a little farther away from green tip, but let's just pretend for a moment that something was actually happening. I'm going to put that green tip date back about 10 days. Let's do it and see what we get. Still not a lot of ascospore maturity, but if you had green tissue, some of these temperatures and stuff would have been enough to suffice for an infection event. March 28th through the 29th and the 31st, giving you a break from these massive combined infection events on April 1st. The day we play the jokes on everyone, for the most part. But I don't think this is a joke. This is not a prank. I think we might get a break in the constant drizzle. You can see it's little bits of rain, 1/10 of an inch, 1/17 of an inch, another 0.2 inches, 0.1, but enough to couldn't wear down your copper so that if you do get a break in the weather and the ground dries up enough where you can dry on it, you might want to move a little bit on and check it out and get something on there, either another copper or if you're heavily into green tip, maybe the AP. I don't know. It's just a very little bit of 2 and 3% ascospore ejection. The copper would probably do it in this case. Let's see if Williams' sun looks any different. Pick a different station. Fairly similar thing. It says they're finally hit green tip, and you're looking at about maybe 6 or 7% ascospore ejection in the area. In this case, it doesn't necessarily calling it an infection period. Now, however, if I set that green tip date back a bit, you'll see how the things change a little bit and having that green tissue out there changes it from like safe to, oh goodness, we have a problem. And in this case, look, you're really approaching almost an inch of rain. Who knows what it was on the 27th? There's going to be a gap period right around April 1st. Some of the heavier rain is today, and some of the higher temperatures as well. As like I mentioned before, we're hitting 60s in the Finger Lakes region, and setting an earlier green tip on some of those early varieties could have apple scab spores flying. Let's take a look at the Finger Lakes, Interlaken, see how we're doing there. It's just going to be, it looks like the Finger Lakes aren't going to get a break. It looks like it's just going to keep raining. And what does it mean when there's no, when it just combines? And what this means is that there is no uninterrupted intervening dry period that's less than 24 hours. You need that 24 hours of dryness to actually break up one of these combined events. And so for the moment, if you're in the Interlaken area and you've set your green tip date back even further, just make it a little bit earlier, you'll see that the ascospore maturity is going up, still in the teens. It's still low because it's been kind of cold, and the ejection is not very high, but we have one drizzly infection period. And what that means is if you can get back in there and put on a new copper, or maybe use the Scalar Vanguard, this might be the time to do it. And let's see how it looks if we go up north, Chazy. Now it's going to hopefully be colder. I got to spell it right. And they're still not a green tip, but let's just pretend. What would it be if they were a green tip? Like about 7 to 10 days, and they are in a situation very similar to what we'd be dealing with in the Finger Lakes. Constant rain, about an inch. If you had silver tip copper on it, could have been washed off. If you get a break in it, it still shows that you're in the middle of the infection period. It won't be completely dry on April 1st, but it might be enough to let you get in there and do the deed. I'm noticing a very similar trend throughout the state. Let's look at Voorheesville and see how they're doing. All right, part of the New York State Mesonet. Still not a green tip date, but let's pretend, and we'll head back. Let's go weave them. Let's pretend even harder. Same boat as everyone else. That infection period for them started on March 29th in sort of the Capital District region. Still getting a good bit of rain, about a little over a half an inch of rain or 3/4 of an inch of rain, and it's still just going to be going constantly. If you can skate back in there and put something in there, I would definitely go the Scalar or Vanguard. And they do, in theory, have reach-back activity against apple scab, and you're not going to use it in a reach-back scenario, but what you're going to do is put it on here so that if anything got through your copper on March 31st when you're going out on April 1st, you got it. And it will also get things that are germinating and causing trouble on April 2nd and April 3rd as well. And that's how we would use that one. Let's see if the Hudson Valley is any different. I can't even imagine. I imagine Long Island's almost over. No, it seems like we've all kind of been compressed together. It looks like the Hudson Valley is having a massive rain today. Oh my goodness, that's a big one on the 31st, about an inch of rain. But their ejection isn't very, very hard. What I would do in this case, if your copper was put on over the weekend or very close to the beginning of the weekend, I would let that ride. And it doesn't look like they have another infection period predicted for the rest of the week, giving the chance for the copper that you've already put on to do the management, and then allowing you to prepare yourself better for the next week. I'm going to take a look at another one. Let's look at Campbell Hall. Let's take a look at this one. Same sort of scenario. It looks like the rain finally ends for the rest of them. They won't have a little bit of a blip of rain on the 2nd or 3rd, allowing hopefully their copper to cover everything and allow you to prepare yourself for the next week. So not necessarily the need to go in the middle and sort of take care of things. Let's see if we can get any of the Riverhead stations up. We're going to have to go North Fork since the others are down. They didn't seem to get the rain. They're getting it right now. And just like the Hudson Valley, still, even if we move the maturity back a bit, let's do it. The daily ejection is not much. The rain wasn't enough to really cause high levels of ejections, like 5 and 6% total for that whole week in general, and a shorter infection period right around this time now. And if you had your copper on close to the weekend, you'd be in pretty good shape. Or even over the weekend, you'd be fine. It probably weathered the rain, and you can prepare yourself for next week. And that's sort of our forecast for the week. That's the strategy. Next, I'll put up some basic information talking about apple scab. All right, thank you.